Okay guys, let's jump right into it. Here we have the smoke. Let's go. Alright, first reactions. Very beautifully rolled cigar. A bit lumpy, but it's okay. I don't mind lumpy, trust me. As a guy who hand rolls, I know that that's not really that important. A lot of my favorite cigars have a little bit of lump to them. Looks really beautiful. I love the band. I love the mixture of the cloth with the sticker. That's really nice. So as they mentioned before, you see you can actually take this off.
Carefully peel it off.
Okay, so as you can see, this peels right off, and boom, you have yourself a nice sticker, which will go right here on my phone. Cigar looks great. Definitely has that San Andreas kind of like woody smell to it, for sure. The filler is very sweet, very honey, like very much has a smell of honey. This is 100 billion% Nicaraguan tobacco, like you could tell right off the bat. First things first, cutters are an invention of the cigar industry to sell. I mean caps are an invention of the cigar industry to sell you cutters. So y'all know I only use my teeth. There you go, done and done. Can't wait. First of the day. That's the only right way to review this shit. So first, a nice little toast. Ooh, right off the bat, very nice. In the beginning, some of that sweetness does come through in the smoke. Much more woodier, oakier taste than I expected. I expected a bit more leather, but I'm assuming that's probably going to change soon. The draw is like say like an 8 out of 10. Draws pretty well. A little bit of pepper right in the beginning too, which gets me a little bit worried. Means that it might be more peppery than I'm like expected. So we're about half an inch in, and as predicted, that sweetness did not last at all. The leatheriness was just in the beginning. It does have a very powerful earthiness to it, with a very subtle, dull sweetness on the end too. So it almost has like a coffee or cacao flavor a little bit. That's like an offshoot of that earthiness, you know, if you want to really pinpoint it. Definitely has some really nice coffee notes, and that's something that you usually get when you mix that Nicaraguan tobacco with that, you know, San Andreas wrapper. Really even burn, and it burns really well. It doesn't burn hot. What I will say is that the flavor doesn't have too much depth. Okay, so even though the cigar is very full of flavor, it's not that deep. And I know some guys that don't care for depth at all, and they like something that has, you know, a ton of flavor. And I know guys that are all about complexity and all that. So there is a good amount of pepper as well. Definitely good to have this cigar with something to drink, just because you will need to cleanse your palate. It's a nice black pepper, about 1.5 inches in. That coffee flavor really, you know, doesn't fuck around. It definitely takes a step forward. Look at that clean burn. Not getting as peppery as I thought it would. The pepperiness actually laid back a little bit, which is interesting. The coffee note definitely took a step forward, and it pretty much tastes like I'm drinking a black coffee right now. The sweetness is practically gone. You know, the sweetness is like a, you know, it's like a heartbeat. It keeps going up and down, up and down, up and down. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It seems to be a battle between a little bit of sweetness and a pepper, you know. Sometimes the pepper is overpowering the sweetness. You taste no sweetness, a lot of pepper. And sometimes the pepper takes you know, a little step back, and then you can somewhat taste a little sweetness, you know, sticking its head through. So it's quite interesting. Like I said, it actually is less peppery than when it was before. So it's actually getting smoother as I smoke it, which I find to be very fascinating, and definitely a +1 in my book. I would love to have another one of these, but there's a lot of cigars that I characterize simply as the beginning sucks, but it gets much better after the first inch. I think this might be one of those cigars. Look at that ash, man. Woo! That's a crazy ash. Nice and long. Burn, still really, really good. Now, this is where it gets interesting. By the way, draw is still amazing. I'm really happy with this draw. I was gonna label this cigar more of a darker, more of a fuller cigar, but I gotta say, the pepper is pretty much backed off. I don't taste any pepper at all now. It tastes really like coffee. The sweetness is there now. It's really strange. I would consider this more medium bodied now, but that might be subject to change towards the end for sure. Again, I stand by my earlier views that it doesn't really have much depth, but it does have a lot of what's on the surface is wonderful. I'll put it to you this way: if you ask somebody, hey, what kind of cigars do you like? And they say, I like Cubans, they probably will not be big fans of this. If they say, my favorite is Dominicans, they probably, this will probably be too much flavor for them. But if they say, like, oh, I like Nicaraguans, this smoke is great. Like the Padron guys, the Plasencia guys. But I was worried. I was worried in the beginning of the cigar that, oh, here's another company I'm gonna have to kind of cut ties with, gonna shit on their cigar that they sent me to review and fucking, and that's it, right? Because honesty is important. I find if I don't enjoy the cigar, I usually try to find the good points of the cigar, even though it's not to my preference. But sometimes, sometimes the cigar just fucking sucks, and I can't in good conscience tell you that a shitty cigar is a good cigar. But luckily, this is not the case. So, it's great smoke. I would recommend the Theory Time. So, I think that when they rolled this cigar, they must have, done it backwards. Because it's weird. It seems to be getting smoother the more down that I go, which is such a pleasant surprise, I must say. It's quite delicious, actually. As you guys might have noticed, we lost the ash, but the burn is still staying strong. Pull is still really good. It's very earthy and very sweet, giving you almost like a coffee with like honey or molasses in there. It's very nice. It's very nice. Much more than I expected. To be perfectly honest, with the way it started. I know I keep repeating myself when I keep saying that, but wow. Also, one thing I gotta say is, sometimes I'd have to put it down, get myself some water, go use the bathroom, and it has no problem staying lit at all, which I think is fantastic. Because sometimes cigars tend to go out, specifically cigars that have darker wrappers like this, but this one is great. Yeah, I'm actually quite happy with this cigar. Again, I was thinking this review would be going a completely different direction. Thing is this, I can't say that maybe you should just chop an inch off of it. I don't think that'll help. It's weird. I feel like it's just the way that it builds up, it almost does the opposite, builds down. So I feel like if you just take an inch off of this cigar and then light it, it's not going to be the same as how it is now. It's very strange. I think that first shitty inch is like important to the cigar itself. I don't know. But damn, it's getting really good. I'm definitely going to finish this all the way to the note, that's for sure. Well, we got about another 2 inches left. Unsurprisingly, the pepper did come back a little bit, which is fine. The earthiness also took a step back, and a nice leatheriness picked up. Funny enough, now there's a bit of depth to it, right? Because now, on the last third, you have on top of the earthiness leather as well. So it's interesting how the lower you go, the better it gets. It's a cigar that does leave quite a bit of surprises as you smoke it. So I will definitely give it a 10 out of 10 for Evolution, because it is definitely keeping me surprised. As we can see, the burn is a little strange now, which is whatever. It's been burning pretty well so far, and the draw is still good. If it gets any worse than this, I'll probably end up fixing it, but for now we'll see how if it doesn't fix itself. I probably got another 20 minutes on this thing. Yeah, so the earthiness is definitely right on top with the nice bit of leather right underneath it. You know what? I'm just gonna give it a nice little touch. Touch up there. All right, folks, we're about an inch away from the end, and I think I'm pretty much done with the smoke. Yep, finished. So, let us discuss my blue heaven. I think I want to start with the pros. The cigar had an awesome draw. Okay, the cigar had a nice flavor at certain points that was quite like really good, really interesting. A lot of notes stood out that normally don't stand out in other cigars that stood out in this cigar, which I found very refreshing. Okay. Also, the way that the burn got a little shitty towards the end, but overall throughout the whole cigar, the burn and the ash was really good. Even if I had to settle it down for a little bit, go take care of something, go use the bathroom, restroom, I came back, the cigar was burning perfect. And I give a lot of points for cigars like that because I know a lot of smokes that do not stay lit, so this one gets mad points for that. Also, I think that it did have a good evolution. Like I said, there's some points where I thought it wasn't as palatable, and then it got much more palatable, and the notes kind of kept going back and forth. At one point, I did refer to the flavor of the dynamic between the sweet and the pepper as a heartbeat. Every puff would bring something different. Sometimes it was sweet, sometimes it was peppery. It's very interesting. So that dynamic was quite nice. Now to the cons. Again, I did mention this before. I was not a fan of the first inch. I think the first inch was very peppery and a little bit unpalatable. It was a little rough, you know what I mean? But then once it seemed to smooth out as it went along. So, but that's one small complaint. And also towards the end, the burn was a little bit strange. But all in all, it was pretty good. And for the majority of the cigar, the flavor was one-dimensional. It was a great flavor, but there was not too much depth to it, which doesn't mean that it didn't taste good. It just means that it didn't have the complexity. But a good flavor, doesn't mean that something, it just because it doesn't have complexity doesn't mean it's not good. An example, you have a soup that has many different, factors, many different ingredients, right? And if you make that soup shitty, you can have a cigar with a lot of complexity but tastes like shit, right? Or you can have something like a tangerine, right? You can have a tangerine that tastes like shit, right? It's one flavor, tangerine, but you can have a shitty tangerine, but this was like a really nice tangerine. You know what I mean? There's only one flavor, you know what to expect, but what you get is a really good tangerine. So as my final number, because I know you guys love fucking numbers for some reason, I would give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Just to give you guys a little perspective, an 8 out of 10 is something that... So 7 out of 10 is something that I would smoke like an everyday smoke. Okay, an 8 out of 10 is something that gives me, a bit of everything that I want. And okay, that's an 8 out of 10. A 9 out of 10 is something that surprises me, and a 10 out of 10 doesn't exist. Okay, so that's pretty much how it works. So 7.5 is a pretty good, it does have certain drawbacks, but it does have many more positive things about it, in my opinion. And to add a final note, a really good way of me knowing whether it's a good cigar or not a good cigar is whether I would want to have another one. And in this particular case, yes, I would like to try another one, so that's how you know it's definitely something you should try. The My Blue Heaven by Privada Cigar Club. Good smoke. I love cigars. Blah, blah, blah.